Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now here are stories making headlines beyond the continent this evening. Ukraine has agreed the terms of a major minerals deal with U.S. It was reported that Washington has dropped initial demands for a right to $500 billion in potential revenue from utilizing the natural resources, but has not given firm security guarantees to war-torn Ukraine, a key Ukrainian demand. U.S. President Donald Trump said he was expecting his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, in Washington to sign a deal this week after the two leaders exchanged strong words about each other. Without confirming that an agreement had been reached, Trump said that in return for the deal, Ukraine would get the right to fight on. And what appears to be a complete turn from his earlier stance on the mineral deal, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the proposed deal with the United States. He described it as a starting point for a wider agreement as Kiev hopes for eventual security guarantees from Washington. In his words, this is just a start, a framework. It can be a big success. The success will depend on the conversation with President Trump.
Угода, що важливо, мені здається, що, ви знаєте, ця угода може бути великий успіх мати, або тихенько пройти. А великий успіх, я вважаю, залежить від нашої розмови з президентом Трампом. Якщо я побачу, почую із задоволенням, і я дуже розраховую на Америку і на президента,
In a related development, the United States President Donald Trump has confirmed he will receive his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington on Friday. The visit will be part of ongoing negotiations on a deal to give the United States access to Ukrainian minerals resources. The confirmation came a few hours after Zelensky changed his stance on the mineral deal with the U.S. Now, meanwhile, the President Donald Trump has expressed interest in purchasing minerals from Russia, stating, "I'd like to buy minerals on Russian land too," during a press conference at the White House. This comment comes as the U.S. and Ukraine are close to signing an agreement on Ukrainian rare earth minerals. Trump also mentioned that Ukraine faces a choice, either conclude a deal on minerals or face problems. The president's remarks highlights the complex dynamics of global mineral trade and the strategic interests of major world powers.
Or did you discuss at all the possibility of a minerals deal on the Ukrainian land that Russia now controls?
I didn't discuss it, no. I'd like to buy minerals on Russian land too, if we can. The rare earth, they have very good rare earth also. They both do, I would say that, and oil and gas. Look, it's a great thing if we sell, it's great for Russia too, because we can do deals there. They have very valuable land that isn't utilized, so something like that could take place, yeah.
Expectations are with this email to federal employees. What are you going to use that information for? And do you see it as voluntary, like OPM has said, or mandatory?
Yeah, well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is do people exist? We have this massive government with millions of people, and nobody knows who's working for the government.
In a heated debate in Montreal, candidates competing to succeed Justin Trudeau as leader of Canada's Liberal Party disagreed on how to approach threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of Canada, acknowledged that Trump has evolved over the years, urging a nuanced approach. In contrast, former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland labeled Trump as the biggest threat our country has ever seen since the Second World War, emphasizing the urgency of confronting his policies. The debate highlighted contrasting views on Canada's foreign policy and its response to challenges and potential tariffs from the United States.
Trump represents the biggest threat our country has seen since the Second World War. I have recognized that from the outset. I've built my campaign on a plan to answer that threat. I do think, though, it is a big mistake for Canadians to think that because we can't change Trump, we can't negotiate with him. Of course we can't change him, but we can outwit him. And the way to...
We will never, ever be part of the United States in any way, shape, or form. We have to recognize that the Donald Trump of today is different than the Donald Trump of several years ago. Then his objective was to take more of our market. Now he wants to take our country. Let me finish by pointing out one other thing. Who's the worst person to stand up to Donald Trump? It's Pierre Poilievre. He worships the man. He uses his language. He's not the right person for our country at this crucial time.
Away from Russia, Ukraine now, the 88-year-old Pope Francis, who is battling pneumonia in both lungs, remains in critical but stable condition. This is according to the Vatican's report on Wednesday. The Pope was admitted in Rome's Gemelli hospital on February 14th for breathing difficulties, sparking global concerns as his conditions worsened. However, after suffering respiratory attacks and requiring blood transfusions, his condition has stabilized. Doctors remain cautious, stating the prognosis is still uncertain. However, no acute respiratory episodes have occurred since the weekend, and his vital signs are stable. The Pope continues to work from the hospital suite, receiving Eucharists and keeping up with church matters. Pilgrims have gathered in prayers, hoping for his recovery. Prayers continue tonight for Pope Francis, who remains in critical condition at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. The leader of the Catholic Church is battling double pneumonia, with his condition described as complex. For News Central, Afia Hagen gives us a picture of the pontiff's health. Her report.
Pope Francis was admitted to hospital on February the 14th after struggling with shortness of breath and appearing frail in recent days. Initially diagnosed with bronchitis, the Vatican later confirmed he has a serious respiratory infection affecting both lungs. His condition took a turn for the worse over the weekend. The Pope suffered a prolonged asthma attack, required high-flow oxygen therapy, and underwent blood transfusions due to low platelet levels. On Sunday, doctors detected mild renal insufficiency, but the Vatican insists it's not a major concern. Despite his illness, Pope Francis has continued working from his hospital bed, signing documents, making phone calls, and even approving the canonization of 2 new saints. The Vatican has been providing twice daily updates, a notable shift towards transparency compared to past papacies. Doctors say Francis himself has asked for honest communication about his condition. This marks his longest hospital stay as Pope, now at 12 days and counting. In recent years, he has faced numerous health challenges, including colon surgery, bronchitis, and a hernia operation. His weakened lungs, the result of surgery in his youth, make him more vulnerable to respiratory illnesses. Even at 88, Pope Francis has resisted slowing down. He refuses long vacations, maintains a demanding schedule, and continues to navigate mobility issues that have required him to use a wheelchair since 2022. For now, Pope Francis remains in serious but stable condition. While the Vatican reports a slight improvement, there is no clear timeline for his recovery. The world watches and prays for the Pope's health. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
And yet for more, we're joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen again. Afia, good evening once again. Please, if you tell us what the latest is on the Pope's health.
Well, it's worth me saying before I give you this update that we are 24 hours behind, and that means that on a daily basis, the news that we get about the Pope is from the previous day. So the news that we had was that he had a tranquil night, a peaceful night, and we are waiting on results from a CT scan that was taken on Tuesday to check on the status of his complex lung infection. And that is kind of the one-line update that we have had today. And that sort of accounts for the Pope's health yesterday and the night before. We're still waiting for the Wednesday update, as it will, and that probably will not come until tomorrow morning. We know that he's continuing to work from hospital, and also yesterday he announced some major governing decisions as well that suggests that he is getting essential work done, and also suggests that he is looking ahead.
So how does the transparency we are seeing on the Pope's health compare to the previous administration's one?
Well, for centuries, it was taboo to talk about the health of the pontiff, of the Pope, because he's a revered spiritual figure, and it was seen as, profane to even talk about his earthly health in any way. If we look at the previous Pope, Pope John Paul II, who died in 2003, before we heard about his death, so 4 or 5 hours before, we were told that he was sitting up in bed and eating biscuits, and he died merely hours later. And we know that this Pope, particular Pope Francis, has made sure and wanted to make sure that people are getting transparent and accurate updates about his health. And we have been allowed, a fair amount of detail when we look at, the asthmatic attack that we were told about, the oxygen flow that he was given, the blood transfusion that he was given as well, the mild kidney failure. We've been allowed quite a lot of details, and that goes hand in hand with who this Pope is. He thrives on being transparent, being a man for the people, and he has been instrumental in making sure that when the updates go out, they go out with as much detail as possible. And that really does differ from, previous popes. Pope John Paul II, we didn't find out he had Parkinson's until quite close to when he died, even though he was visibly shaking for months. So that kind of tells you that Pope Francis has a different approach when it comes to his health that is carrying on through his office, and therefore we are getting more transparent updates than we are used to with popes in the past. But like I said, they are kind of 24 hours behind.
So we hear about the pilgrims that are descending on Rome. What should we expect from that?
Yeah, thousands of people descending on Rome, and also because this is Pope Francis' Jubilee year. And of course, we are coming up to Lent and to Easter, probably the biggest celebration in the Catholic Christian calendar. So we have lots of pilgrims gathering in Rome anyway, and especially for this Jubilee year. But lots of people have been attracted to Rome and to the hospital there to pray for the pontiff. There's prayers every night at 9 p.m. in the square outside the hospital, and those have had huge crowds which are growing day by day, and of course prayers being said for him back home in Argentina as well. Yes, like I said, outside Rome's Gemelli hospital, you have thousands of the faithful gathering to pray for the health of the Pope every single evening.
Well, Afia, once again, thank you very much for bringing us all that information about the Pope. Thank you. We're going on a short break now, and when we return, fear grows among displaced residents of West Bank as alleged annexation plans thickens. This and more after this time out. Stay with us. The European Union has introduced efforts to simplify its environmental regulations to support businesses facing competition from the US and China, while still prioritizing decarbonization. This shift in focus, led by European Commissioner Wopke Hoekstra, responds to concerns over sluggish economic growth and is a move away from the climate-centric agenda of EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen's first mandate. The EU is also addressing rising tensions with the US, particularly President Trump's America First strategy, which has raised fears of a trade conflict. The new plan aims to cut energy costs, reduce red tape, and support clean tech growth without compromising the EU's green goals. Member states are encouraged to lower electricity taxes, and several environmental regulations will be erased to reduce business burdens. I take that again, would be eased to reduce business burdens.
And just to be clear, there's no question. There is no question of turning on our backs on climate action. But we know that at the same time, we cannot do this without bringing business and industry much more closely on board. And that is why we are making a strong business case for investment in decarbonization. And that is why we're drastically simplifying the regulatory environment so that businesses can actually focus on what they do best, growing and innovating.
En ciment propre. La priorité est donc de dynamiser le secteur bas carbone en Europe. Pour cela, il faut stimuler la demande, et donc ce pacte propose de repenser totalement la logique d'achat public, jusqu'ici basée sur le seul critère du prix, et on introduira de nouveaux critères de durabilité, de résilience, de performance et de préférence européenne dans les marchés publics, et plus généralement dans les aides publiques. Nous viserons.
We need to ensure that this transformation is just, it is inclusive. We are committed to ensuring that the benefits of this transition are shared by the whole society. The transformation of our industry requires skilled people and quality jobs. Skills and quality jobs will be the foundation of an inclusive and equitable green transition, especially for regions reliant on high-carbon industries. The shift to a clean energy is already creating jobs.
Against the backdrop of growing tensions with Algiers, French Prime Minister François Bayrou has requested an interministerial audit of visa insurance policies. Now, ties between Paris and Algiers have been complicated for decades, but have taken a turn for the worse since last July, when Macron angered Algeria by recognizing a plan for autonomy for the Western Sahara region under Moroccan sovereignty. Prime Minister François Bayrou said France is going to ask the Algerian government to re-examine all the immigration control agreements with France from 1968 treaty. He claims the North African country's refusal of welcoming its citizens who are being thrown out by France is a direct violation of agreements between the two countries. France has now given a deadline for 1 month, 6 weeks, for the reviews.
Mais nous ne pouvons pas accepter que la situation perdure de ce point de vue-là. Je le dis sans volonté de faire de l'escalade. Je le dis sans volonté de faire de la surenchère. Simplement, il est de la responsabilité du gouvernement français de dire que les refus de réadmission sont une atteinte directe aux accords que nous avons avec les autorités algériennes et que nous ne l'accepterons pas.
In a major breakthrough, France's most wanted fugitive Mohamed Amra has been taken into custody after being extradited from Romania. French authorities confirmed that Mohamed Amra, who has been on the run since his escape last May in an ambush that left 2 prison officers dead, is now in French custody and will be held in extremely strict solitary confinement. He was identified through facial recognition tools and fingerprints after he changed his appearance and dyed his hair orange while on the run. At the time of his escape last May, Amra was facing 1 charge for attempted murder and another for involvement in a gang-related killing in Marseille, a southern city known for drug trade and criminal activities. Amra is now indicted on multiple crime charges, including murder, before an investigating magistrate in Paris late Tuesday after his extradition from Romania.
Revenu hier à Paris, a été présenté devant un juge d'instruction. Ce juge d'instruction a considéré qu'il fallait le mettre en examen et le mettre en prison de manière préventive, en détention provisoire. C'est évidemment une décision dont je me félicite. Et je remercie le juge des libertés de la détention, devant lequel M. Amra a été présenté, qu'il l'a mis dans le quartier d'isolement que nous avions désigné avec l'administration pénitentiaire, puisque j'avais demandé qu'il soit mis à l'isolement à la prison de Condé-sur-Sarthe, qui est sans doute l'une de nos 2 prisons.
There are growing fears among Palestinian militants that the deployment of Israeli tanks in the occupied West Bank may be a step toward annexation. In the last 1 week, Israeli forces looking for militants have cleared 3 refugee camps and deployed tanks in an area leading to the fear of annexation. As of Monday, streets surrounding the Jenin refugee camp in the territory's north were empty, as 3 Israeli tanks stationed at higher vantage points overlooked the area. Displaced camp residents now enter through a back alley to retrieve belongings from their homes. Israeli leaders have repeatedly pledged to annex at least parts of the West Bank, which has been occupied since 1967. But any such proposal has been met with strong opposition from Palestinians and much of the international community. Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Sarraj on Wednesday held a meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah II in Amman. The pair discussed security along their shared borders and the return of Syrian refugees. They also deliberated on the need to coordinate on reducing smuggling of weapons and drugs across the 2 countries. The trip is Sarraj's third abroad since he overthrew long-term ruler Bashar al-Assad in December. His first visit were to Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And authorities in Chile have lifted a state of emergency it imposed following the country's worst blackout in over a decade. Chilean Minister for Interior and Public Safety Carolina Toja, who announced the end to the state of emergency, assured that normalcy returns to the country on Wednesday. She also acknowledged the reports of 3 electro-dependent persons who died during the night. A massive blackout left nearly all of Chile without power on Tuesday, prompting the government to declare a state of emergency to enforce a curfew. The blackout was as a result of major failure in a key transmission line spanning more than 2,400 kilometers.
Como dije al principio, esto es indignante, porque no es posible que la vida cotidiana de millones de chilenos y chilenas se vea alterada de esta forma por empresas que no hacen bien su trabajo. Tomé la decisión.
Now, Hong Kong's finance chief Paul Chan has announced plans to cut public spending and restore fiscal balance by mid-2027. The city has faced significant deficits exceeding $20 billion in 3 of the past 4 years and is under pressure to balance its books. To achieve this, the government will contain spending while minimizing the impact on public services and livelihood. Chan also unveiled growth plans, including the establishment of a Hong Kong AI Research and Development Institute with a budget of about 1 billion Hong Kong dollars. The economy is expected to grow between 2 to 3% this year, with the Internal Monetary Fund noting a gradual recovery after a period of shock. That's all on Beyond the Continent this hour. Do remember now that you can watch News Central live on DSTV, Channel 422, Star Times, Channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazzino Appeal.